How's it going, Yankee fans? My name is Alex with my co-host here, Ryan Garcia, and today I want to discuss two veteran bullpen arms who could be left off the playoff roster. Now, Joel Sherman of the New York Post did report recently that the Yankees were even contemplating releasing, DFAing Aroldis Chapman. I know we discussed this the other day, but I want to discuss, who takes their spots in the playoffs, kind of why we can't rely on Britton, why we can't rely on Chapman. Just leave them off the roster. You don't have to cut them, right? Like, you're already paying them. You don't have to DFA them. You could just leave them off the playoff roster, and then that way they can't go to another team. They can't help another squad that might be in playoff contention, or we might have to play, and they might divulge in our secrets and whatnot. So I kind of get the sense that the Yankees don't rely on them. Chapman has not been featuring a lot lately. Britton gave up a run, and recorded just one out before he was done. So the only real value I see in these two guys down the stretch is literally just mitigating fatigue for everybody else until the playoffs, and the Yankees can kind of roll in there feeling good about the health and momentum that their guys currently have that are more reliable. Clark Schmidt's been kind of going through something lately. He gave up that hit yesterday for the walk-off against Toronto. So definitely not ideal. But Ryan, what are your thoughts on Chapman, thoughts on Zach Britton, and if you think they're going to be on the postseason roster, you think maybe we should stay clear of them?
Yeah, so I would side on let's stay clear of Chappie and Britton. I know that I think we talked about this before Britton returned. We were talking about the importance of, for guys like Zach Britton, they can't just come in here and slump their way through their first three outings. It's got to be immediate impact because the Yankees have a plethora of postseason arms available for them, and these guys are unproven. And with that report from Sherman, I mean that kind of immortality you felt Chapman kind of had on the roster were like, oh, he's Aroldis Chapman. The stature of he's Aroldis Chapman was going to keep him on the roster. The reputation, the resume of his career was going to keep him on the roster. I think that's gone. I think the Yankees are no longer attached or committed to Aroldis Chapman. I don't think they're at all committed to Zach Britton. I mean, could you argue that Britton never even gets a chance to pitch if Peralta never gets hurt? Right? Like, that was the reason he was called up. It was not because, the Yankees felt like calling him up. He got, Wandy Peralta got hurt. We'll see when Peralta comes back what that corresponding move is. But just going based off the roster and guys that might come back. So you have Peralta who's going to come back. They mentioned Montas is most likely going to be an opener or a reliever, so that's a roster spot right there. And I think the Yankees would rather take the chance with a healthy Frankie Montas and take a chance with Zach Britton / Aroldis Chapman. And I think that's a good bet to make. So that's two guys right there. Do they want to bring back Albert Abreu? Albert Abreu struggled towards the end before he got hurt, but could you make the argument that those struggles, that really high ERA, comes from not having your best stuff because you're injured, right? Or you're pitching through kind of a impingement in your shoulder. That could be an argument made. And you can even say when you include those outings, he still has an ERA of 3.24 with the Yankees at a 2.92 FIP. That's far better than whatever Aroldis Chapman and Zach Britton's giving you. You're not asking the guy to pitch in high leverage. You're asking the guy to pitch, some filler inning in the 6th or 7th or 5th or whatever it may be. He's probably going to do a better job than Chapman or Britton will. So, that's two guys right there. That's, 3 guys right there with 2 roster spots in Chapman and Britton. I mean, you're going to send down Schmidt. I mean, I don't think it would make any sense to send down Schmidt. I know he's had his ups and downs lately. Yesterday wasn't the best day for him. But in the same breath, that was the ghost runner and it was a base hit. It was a ground ball. You can't really kill the guy for that. He's been getting barreled up a little bit more lately, which is a little concerning. But the ERA is still 3.35 on the season. I think the Yankees trust him. I trust him to be at least a league average reliever. He gives you, length in the bullpen. Again, Britton and Chapman do not do that. Britton can't even go back-to-back games. And in the ALCS, you get one off there. I believe it's only one for the ALCS. You get 2 in the ALDS, 1 in the ALCS. If you only have one off there, that means that if you use, let's say for games 5, 6, and 7, if you use Britton in game 6, he's not available for 5 or 7. You have 7 relievers for 2 of the final 3 games of arguably the second most important series you could possibly play in Major League Baseball. That's not valuable. That immediately kills Britton's value. And on top of that, the command isn't there. For Chapman, I mean, we know Chapman is just a hot mess. We've talked about this before. The home runs, the walks, the strikeouts are down. He's just not a good pitcher right now. And then you look at the rest of the guys in the bullpen, do you want to, yes, do I trust Licky in high leverage? No, but do I think Licky is more valuable again in those multi-inning roles than Chapman and Britton are? Absolutely. Marnacio, Trevino, Efros, Loizaga have all had great success in the second half. Holmes has at least been up and down in the sense that sometimes he's good, sometimes he's bad, sure, but the good is a lot better than the good you get from the other guys. And he's had a couple of big ninth innings, against Toronto and the Red Sox, which is very encouraging. He's been very fastball heavy. He's used his slider. He used his fastball on every single pitch yesterday, and I think all but one of his pitches against the Red Sox were fastballs. So there's a change at least there that you can say there's some success correlating to a change. There's just no reason for these two guys to be on the roster, and I don't see that changing anytime soon in terms of my opinion on the two.
Yeah, I agree. And look, I don't really want to have to rely on them unless it's a last resort. Of course, if there's adversity or injury or whatever, but hopefully we can avoid that. I'm in the same boat. Chapman, Zach Britton, what are they really bringing to this team right now that you can't get from somebody else? The only kind of problem is like they're your two lefty veterans. Wandy Peralta's the guy you're going to look to as the lefty. It kind of feels like a phantom IL. They're definitely wanted to give him some rest, but prior to the playoffs, he's going to serve a big role. And these guys are basically, Chapman and Britton are basically just mitigating fatigue for Wandy Peralta, who is your primary lefty guy in the bullpen, since, we're kind of discussing these two not being involved. But there are a couple of younger options that the Yankees have to kind of make decisions on. One of them being Ron Marinaccio. What are your thoughts on Ron right now in September? 3.68 ERA, gave up 2 earned runs in appearance 4 games ago against Pittsburgh on the 20th. But since then, he's gone 2.1 innings. He's only given up 1 hit, walked 1 batter, had 4 strikeouts in that time span. He's given up 3 earned runs this month, but it seems to be like he was just off that day. He's looked a lot better lately. Yesterday he produced 2 ground balls, which is solid. And then, against Boston, he looked really good, 2 strikeouts. And a ground ball there. So, do you think that they'll factor him in? Do you think that he's going to play a big part in the postseason? Or do you think maybe they'll try to steer clear of some of the younger, like inexperienced guys that have no like real experience in the postseason to begin with? And that might be a situation where like they're, we can't really rely on them. But I feel like Marinaccio is one of those guys that like, he just looks and feels calm at all times. So I don't really get the sense that they're going to limit him because of that.
Yeah, so for Marinaccio, I don't see him closing games just because they haven't gone to him as a closing option. Not saying that they shouldn't ever do it because they've never done it before. However, I don't think that's going to be the route they take. But I do think they're going to still use him in high leverage. We know how he does against lefties. That changeup is remarkable. He's a very valuable part of this bullpen. He's been very consistent all year. He's had his ups and downs, but those ups and downs are one bad outing and then a bunch of really good ones after. We know about that scoreless inning streak he had earlier in the year. The changeup plays very well. The fastball is, it's a unique pitch. It's released from a low slot. It gets a lot of good vertical movement up in the zone and has a lot of run. It's thrown with decent velocity. The changeup we know is that, Bugs Bunny type changeup. It's his best pitch. It's the pitch that you see kind of jump off the screen. And then his slider also gets a good amount of sweep. He's just got 3 really nasty pitches, and he's a really good pitcher. He's had great results all year. It'd be hard for me to imagine that a guy with a 2.18 ERA doesn't factor for the Yankees in October. And then, you kind of factor in some of the other younger guys. I think Schmidt is probably a guy they're going to stay clear from in high leverage. I think they'll use him maybe in a 6th inning of a 2-3 run game, but never bringing him in to be the fireman, get out of a jam after a starter kind of works his way into some issues. I don't think he's going to be the first guy coming out the bullpen. But that's not really why you have Schmidt there, and you don't need Schmidt to be that. So, it's not an issue for the Yankees, of course. I look at a guy like Trevino. I really like Lou Trevino, what he's done for the Yankees. He's actually led the Yankees in ERA in terms of relievers since he's gotten here in pinstripes. He's got a sub-1 ERA. The perfils aren't great, but he's gotten better in terms of managing the strikeout to walk rate. He's gone a little more slider heavy as he's kind of progressed with the Yankees. His slider has that, video game sweep we see from guys like Michael King or even Lucas Litke, or we talk about Ron Marinaccio in that regard too. He's really, really reliable. I don't know if he'll close games. We had that big multi-inning save against the Blue Jays earlier in the season, but he's definitely a guy with some experience. He's actually pitched in New York. He pitched in New York for the playoffs in 2018. He was not the guy who gave up the leadoff home run. That was Liam Hendricks, but he came in and he shut down the Yankees for a couple innings there and really solidified that Oakland bullpen. He's pitched 5 innings in the postseason, small sample size, of course, but he does have a low sub-2 ERA, so he has at least some experience. He's closed some games before. He's done it as a Yankee. He's done it in Oakland. So I'm very confident that you can see Lou Trevino get some of those closing reps. Same with Scott Efros. LeMahieu's pitched a lot better. I still think they'll look to Holmes to close games. They did look to Holmes in the 9th and 10th inning in consecutive outings of his now. So you look at, and Wandy Peralta, when he gets back, we know has had some fireman closing experience. So they have a plethora of guys with at least the experience, the pedigree, and the stuff to go out and get weak contact, to get strikeouts, and get the Yankees some big outs in the 8th or 9th inning, or even extra innings of a baseball game. And that's what makes a bullpen as dominant as this bullpen has been for most of the year.
Yeah, I do want to discuss another kind of irrelevant topic, and that's DJ LeMahieus and the infield kind of structure once he returns from this toe injury. Now, the Yankees have won 7 of the last 8 games, so there's no rush to get DJ back. But this injury is going to kind of hamper him the rest of the way. He said recently, I don't think that at this point it's really going to go away. It's just stay ready and let them know how I feel. I'll be ready to go whenever that day is. So as much rest as the Yankees can afford to give him, I think that's necessary. Of course, he's kind of ramping up now. Aaron Boone said yesterday he's going to do a little bit more these next couple of days. He'll hit early Tuesday and test it more intensely. But the infield has looked pretty good lately, right? Gleyber Torres has been really, really solid in September. He's hitting 305, getting on base at over 38%. He has 25 hits and 6 homers over 82 at-bats. He's also been pretty solid on defense, so no, kind of caution there. IKF at shortstop, you're not going to put DJ LeMahieu at shortstop, so I'm not really, going to discuss IKF. He's been pretty good offensively. Defensively, obviously, had a couple trouble. Yes, a little bit of a trouble situation yesterday with the noodle arm. I love how we just kind of fit noodle arm into the conversation so seamlessly nowadays. But definitely not ideal. But Anthony Rizzo, another spot where DJ LeMahieu could get some reps, but I just don't think it's necessary unless he needs a day off to mitigate fatigue. He's hitting 241 with a 33.3% on base rate and 2 homers since coming back on September 18th. He's been solid, obviously. And then Josh Donaldson, ever since having another little girl, he has been solid as well. That's the position where I would say that DJ has the best opportunity of making an appearance and an impact. Donaldson's hitting 246 with a 33.3% on base rate in September. He has 3 homers and 9 RBIs. Defensively, he's been stout all year. So, there's definitely like kind of a situation where where do you put DJ when he does come back? Are you using him to mitigate fatigue during the playoffs specifically? Are you putting DJ on the hot corner over Donaldson? I think that's the only spot that it makes realistic sense to do that. I guess, in the meantime, if he comes back before the postseason actually gets here, he can just kind of help mitigate fatigue for all of those guys across the board, in the infield specifically. But once the playoffs start, Stanton's your DH, right? Ryan, how do you kind of see DJ fitting into this equation?
I mean, it depends on what type of DJ LeMahieu we get. We saw kind of a banged up LeMahieu last year where he played through a lot of injuries and he was a league average hitter. And I would say a league average hitter is what Josh Donaldson has been for the Yankees. I'm not even going to say that it literally statistically has been what Donaldson has been for the Yankees. So are you really getting an upgrade there? I don't know. The defense at third base for LeMahieu has been really good this year. Don't get me wrong. I mean, the guy's got 7 defensive runs saved and under 400 innings there. If you want to put him at first base, I mean, you can't because you have Rizzo, and Rizzo's been so good this year for the Yankees. Like you said, I mean, what type of LeMahieu are we getting here, right? Are we getting the LeMahieu from the first half? Because then you just figure it out, right? You just figure out, Donaldson, you played well in September, but first half LeMahieu is the perfect, high contact, low chase rate option you need to, put in the lineup around guys like Judge and Rizzo and Stanton, who hit the ball really hard and hit the ball really far and hit a lot of home runs. But if you get the LeMahieu that is, going to be putting up an OPS, in the high 600s, low 700s, and ground into a lot of double plays and really struggle to generate any power, that you sit back and you go, you know what, maybe we just stick with Donaldson. It's a really big question mark. LeMahieu's a really big question mark. And in a sense of we know what type of LeMahieu's there are. There's the really good LeMahieu, the healthy LeMahieu. Then there's that kind of banged up LeMahieu, and that LeMahieu doesn't generate power. He doesn't really get things going offensively. He still walks a lot. But it's kind of a question about what do you value, the contact skills and the high walk rate, or do you value that occasional power every now and then with a decent high walk rate in Donaldson? And the defense, I would say, is a wash. I think they're both stellar defenders. But as you mentioned, LeMahieu can mitigate fatigue. He can come in and kind of swap around different positions, and there's value in that. It would make things easier if LeMahieu could come in and give me like a 3-4 340, 350 on base percentage. If he gives me that, then I would definitely want him starting. But if he, it's a big question. It's a big if. It's a lot to ask of LeMahieu because we just don't know what he is right now at the plate. We don't even know what he is with the glove, right? We saw this last year. His defensive numbers were not nearly as good as they were in years past or this year. And we can attribute that to injury. So, again, what LeMahieu are we getting? How close to 100% is LeMahieu? These are big factors, and those are big questions the Yankees are going to have to ask themselves. And that's the same question you're going to have with Benintendi eventually, Carpenter eventually, where, you have guys like Cabrera playing well. Hopefully Stanton turns things around. Other guys in the lineup playing well. Gleyber's been playing well. And you're going to sit back and say, well, it's not as easy as just throw the guy in the lineup because we don't know what we have, right? So hopefully Donaldson stays hot and LeMahieu comes in at 100%, and we have a good question to ask about, how we're going to maneuver things in October. But as of right now, I see Donaldson as a starting third baseman, and LeMahieu he's got to prove to me that he's close to LeMahieu who was in the first half before I can start just handing him a starting job again.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. September, August, definitely not ideal for DJ in terms of his stats. The toe injury really affects him in the batter's box. Defensively, he can kind of handle it. But that twisting motion, putting that pressure on the right toe, on that toe, is just not really serving him well. So we'll see what happens here when he comes back. We'll see how the Yankees try to, kind of insert him into the equation and how much he can handle where he plays essentially. But right now I'm optimistic. This team is looking good. They're just, got to push past some of these teams that are better, right? Pittsburgh, Boston, not very good. We destroyed them. We had a couple of close ones there at the same time. Toronto, I feel like we should have won that game yesterday. I think, Judge, that home run is kind of looming over everybody right now. It's like just waiting for it to happen and all the intentions on him. And it's just like, need to get that over with. So hopefully he can do that tonight and, kind of end that just this kind of sequence of everyone just videotaping him and everybody standing up and everybody like always watching every movement he does. I think it's just a lot. It's taking away from the team aspect that the Yankees kind of need right now, that unity, and it's all focused on Judge. And I think that they kind of got to forget about that. So he's just got to push past it. So hopefully he can get it done tonight. But guys, we'd love to hear perspectives below on Zach Britton or Aroldis Chapman. How you think they're going to incorporate DJ LeMahieu in the coming days here when he comes back from injury? Always happy to hear your narratives and perspectives, my friends. Always make sure to like and subscribe below, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.